I'm Natalie Weigel. I'm an LCSW. I got my bachelor's degree and master's degree in social work here at ETSU. Today, I'm just going to be talking a little bit about my experiences growing up and becoming an international social worker and how I got here as well. So, I grew up in China. I spent about 10 years in Taiwan and Shanghai, China. I moved there about when I was 1 years old, and so really young. Grew up in a place that didn't have many people that look like me, didn't have a lot of foods that were normal to other people. It was definitely an interesting way to grow up. My dad um, moved us there because of his business. And my mom, even though she's not a social worker, I always tell her that she is a social worker by trade, but she does not get paid. She does a lot of volunteering work, and is kind of where my spark for social work um, started from. She was very involved in the orphanages in China and in Taiwan. She would go there and volunteer. Um, almost every other day. And then when we lived in Shanghai, China, she helped run a homeless shelter for men there called the Renewal Center. It was a place where they could come and get free food, free access to like washers and dryers, and even clothes if they needed. I spent a lot of time there. In high school, especially, and just getting to know the people there and what that work looked like, and just had such an interest and such a love for being there and meeting people and hearing their stories and trying to help them in whatever way we could. During my time growing up, my parents were very encouraging to us to travel, to make our own experiences. And my mom, of course, pushed me to have those experiences be to help others, to see what it was like to go to different countries and what other people were living like and what the need was there. So I spent a lot of summers in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, with a couple of family friends of ours who are missionaries there. He is a pilot, so he flew all over Haiti, providing transportation to doctors, to give surgery and free medical care to people in really remote areas of Haiti. So I would fly around with him, and I got to know a lot of people in Haiti, spending summers there. I got to develop relationships. I was volunteering in a specific special needs orphanage there the summers that I did spend there. Um, Absolutely loved it. Felt like it was home for me. Um, Felt like the need of people. I went there the first time, and I'm going to help all these people, and they need me, and really found out that they are very self-sustainable, that even though they struggle to find food and water every day, that they have such a sense of community, that they are supported. They don't have access to internet or phones, and so they live in a way that's very simple. And I found them to be quite content and happy, and I learned so much from them during that time. So my senior year of high school, it was 2010. The earthquake in Haiti happened, um, killing hundreds and thousands of people, and destroying all of the infrastructure in Haiti. The buildings are not built in a way to sustain any type of damage, so most of the huts and things were very easily destroyed. And so it was left in a disaster. People were without food, without water, without a place to live. And I felt so deeply connected to that country and the people there, and how they had treated me and welcomed me, and really learned so much from them, that I decided, after I graduated high school, actually 2 weeks before I graduated, I moved there with my parents' full support, and spent a year there doing relief work, helping raise funds to rebuild the orphanage that had volunteered there for a long time. The first time I went to Haiti after that earthquake, I spent about 2 weeks and was shocked at what I saw. Every Most people in Haiti were living in tent cities at that time. I got off the plane and there was a sea of blue tents everywhere. And this is where people were living. They were scared to go back into their homes. There was continued earthquake aftershocks. And so, they really were living outside. There was a lot of disease. There was a lot of just pain and suffering. And as a 18-year-old, witnessing that was a lot. And I just felt such a great need to help in any way I can. So I actually came back to China where my parents were after that 2-week period. And I helped and supported an event, Ace Charity event. And it was basically an art auction, a battle of the bands, a fashion show. And, we got all these people together in pursuit of raising money to help Haiti specifically. We ended up raising enough money to help start rebuilding the orphanage, the special needs orphanage that I had volunteered in a lot, and the kids were displaced from. So after that, a couple weeks there doing that, I went back to Haiti and stayed there for a year to see that through. The orphanage was rebuilt. And the kids were able to come back and have a safe place to stay and pursue getting adopted and just live their lives. So that was a great success for me. I learned so much during that year. I think some of my biggest struggles during that time was comfort and having to check myself on my privilege and growing up in a place where I didn't have to worry about food or what my next meal was going to come from or who was going to take care of me. I had two very supportive, loving parents who provided me and my siblings with everything that we needed. So living in a hut without running water, without electricity, it was difficult and it wasn't always pleasant. It was very hot in Haiti, as you imagine. And, there was a couple times where I got sick and just feeling really miserable. There's a couple times I remember calling a friend or my mom for support and just saying, like, I don't want to do this anymore. But knowing that I wanted to be there, but not every day was good. And so I think that was my biggest struggle in Haiti, was just to get over the comfort and the lack of familiarity with the food, with the culture, with the language barriers. It was difficult, but it was enriching, and I felt like I was helping on such a different level than I had experienced as a social worker here in my kind of like post-formative life. When I was a social worker here, people really need connection. They need social support. But in Haiti, they need basic needs. They needed food, they needed water, they needed medicine. And the frustrating part for me through that was I couldn't help everybody. I couldn't give everybody what they needed. And I felt very stretched thin. Me being white was a beacon of of hope, I think, for some people, that hey, she has money or she has access to resources that we don't, and so getting bombarded sometimes with the people's desperate need for things and not being able to do enough or feel like I'm doing enough was difficult. I think my greatest success there was one, rebuilding the orphanage and having the kids have a place to call home, and to, you know, um, come down from some of the trauma that they've experienced and have a safe place. and a chance to be adopted and to get a family. That was an extremely just enriching experience for me. But I think also that I learned to adapt to that culture. And, one example of that was I was going to the markets to buy food, and I was confused why people were staring at me so much and gawking at the food that I was buying. And I realized that I was buying food for a week time, like I would normally do and stock in my fridge, and that I couldn't do that because I didn't have a fridge, and that it was more money than most people would spend on food in a long time. So having to rethink and reroute some of my habits around that and acclimate to the culture and the climate and just meet people where they're at and not try to impose my values of life, my culture on them, but to treat that experience as a great learning opportunity, have them be the expert and teach me and guide me through their culture, and to sit back and be the passenger a lot. And that is how I feel like I built relationships with people. I let them teach me, I let them be the people that told me what they needed, and just met them again where they're at. I tried very hard and deeply connect with the concept of giving people a hand up instead of a hand out, trying to find jobs for people, trying to build them up with confidence that they have skills to be successful, what their role in family life is, things like that, instead of just providing them food or water for one time that day. There was a lot of other organizations doing that. So after my year was up in Haiti, I decided that I wanted to learn more skills and to become a social worker. So I came back to East Tennessee. I started my bachelor's in social work, graduated, and didn't really know what to do after that. I felt like I wanted to go back to Haiti, but maybe wanted to do something different. So I spent a little bit of time thinking, and I looked on a couple websites of international social work jobs and found this position with the Salvation Army in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, working with human trafficking victims. So I applied on a whim, and I had an interview, and all of a sudden I was moving to Amsterdam. Again, my family was very supportive. I did not know what to expect going there. It was very different from the cultures that I had lived and grown up in and experienced before. Very exciting, but also there was a lot of fear there, a lot of fear of what to expect. I had a degree now. I had to put my big girl pants on. The job was, going to be intense, and I was there to work, not to just live and to build relationship. I was there to do a job. So a lot of fear of my own confidence and confidence, and thinking about what I could actually bring to the table for these women that I was going to work with. So when I moved there, my job ended up becoming help running a safe house for human trafficking victims in the red light district of Salvation Army. This was something that I again thought, oh, I'm going to go in, I'm gonna help, and I'm gonna save these women who are being trapped and in sex work and have been trafficked. I had a really different experience there than I thought I ever would. It was 2016 when I moved there. Sex work is legal in the red light district in Amsterdam, so that put a really different spin on it. I met women who, of course, had been trafficked. They weren't tied to bedposts or in the way that the movies portray. However, there was people that had their passports, had their documentation, and kept them in sex work because of that. A lot of them were from other countries that were, financially in struggle, and they were sending money back home to their families. So even from that standpoint, they were here for a reason. Not every woman that I met needed to be saved or helped. So I had to change what I thought my role was going to be there. And I did help 6 women while I was there get repatriated to their home country. Um, they went back. The government helped them get jobs and set up with housing. And that was a great success. But there's also a lot of women there that wanted to stay and wanted to continue to do sex work, which surprised me. And as I got to know them, I understood and learned so much about their life and their views and their value system. And again, I think that is also how I built relationships with these women is creating a safe space for them. One, building trust with them by just showing up week after week for them, being there to listen, to not judge, to be open, and to ask questions, have a curious mindset. And again, just like wanting them to be the expert, to teach me what their life was, what they love about this work, what they want to change, how they keep themselves safe. So I took on a role of just curiosity, researcher perhaps, and this is how I build relationships with them. I wasn't a threat. I didn't want to change their life. I tried to meet them where they're at and just help their life become a little bit more safe, or in a way that they got medical care when they needed it, had access to sexual health resources when they needed it. That little things, and using humor, using commonalities, finding, oh, we both love the same nail polish, or we both have a dog and adore them. Let's talk about it. Finding the commonalities and the humanity in us both. And I loved my time there. I felt like I formed a community, and through that, one of my favorite aspects of me working there was in the blue light district. So you have the red light, you have the blue light district. The blue light district is with trans people. So I helped set up and run a trans sex worker support group. These women often feel isolated from the other sex workers in the district, and didn't really have relationships. And often, when I was talking to them and they would come into our center, they would say they just don't know anybody. They don't feel connected. They feel like they didn't have a community. And so helping set up a community for them where they have people around them that know what they're going through, are like-minded, have similarities to them, was beautiful to watch. And probably, I would imagine, my biggest success while I was there is just helping facilitate relationship between women and watching them support one another and love one another and find solace that others are also going through and dealing with similar things than them. Another thing that I did while I was there was to formulate a way to all get together, and this is through making dinner together. So once a week, all the women that would come into the center, they would come, and each one would kind of take turn cooking a meal that's from their culture, and teaching us about it. And I felt like that really cemented their their confidence in who they were, where they came from, and gave them a place to talk about home, to talk about their culture, and have us learn and deepen the connection and the relationship in that way. I remember when it came Thanksgiving time that I it was my turn and I cooked a Thanksgiving meal, and just having sharing a meal, breaking bread with people of all different cultures, all different walks of life, and value systems and beliefs, and all coming together and just being thankful and talking about the things in life that we're grateful for was such an important part in my time there, and something that I will always remember for sure. So my time there was stressful. I lived in the red light district in a house that the Salvation Army has there. And so living and working in the same place is difficult. I felt like, again, like I did in Haiti, that my time was never enough, that I would not be able to help or do what I needed to in the amount of time that I was given. And so finding myself working a lot and not necessarily taking good self care, not having balance. And that is something that is so vitally important when you're doing any sort of work, but especially when you're overseas and you don't have your natural support system. And that is one thing that I recommend for anyone pursuing international social work, is to find a support system while you're there, to make sure that you stay healthy, to take space, to have balance in your life by, having fun things, having things that is outside of work. Because it is so easy once you're living there and you don't really have community, you don't have normal things that you would do in your life at home, to be sucked into working a lot more than you should or need to. And understanding that you can only do so much. And I love the metaphor of the oxygen mask on the plane, that you need to put your own on before you can help somebody else. This is a really important thing to remember as an international social worker, is that you can't help everybody. There's that story of the little boy with the starfish, and he's on the beach and he's throwing these starfish back in the ocean, and there's this man that comes by and asks him, like, what are you doing? He's like, all these starfish are on the sand, they're going to die if I don't put them all back. And he looks down the beach and he says, there's miles and miles, I'll never be able to save them all. And the old man, the older gentleman, picked up the starfish and threw it back in the ocean. He said, yes, but you saved this one. And that was important, that you helped that one. And so I think that is something that I carry with me, is that, I wasn't able to save everyone, and maybe I shouldn't have even saved anyone. But I couldn't help everybody. I couldn't give everybody what they needed. But the things that I did do, the love that I showed, the relationships that I built, were important and valid. And that, to me, is what I carry through. Not what I didn't do, but what I did do while I was there with the time that I was given. As far as clinically, I am a clinical social worker and am currently a therapist here at the ETSU Counseling Center. I found that while I was there in Amsterdam, that the women were opening up and they really just needed somebody to talk to about stuff, talk to about their lives, and they didn't necessarily need food or water, or the basic needs that the people in Haiti needed. So having that shift was an interesting change for me, of shifting what I was giving to people, what I could offer, and my services. I used a lot of humor, trying to lighten things up, trying to connect in a way, but I also found that celebrating the tiny wins, the tiny little changes a person was experiencing, to be immensely important and helpful. If somebody they went to the doctor for the first time in a really long time, like, celebrate that. That's awesome. They're taking care of themselves. making a small change in their life to better their life. And we celebrated every single tiny win that was told to us. And that you could just see the demeanor change in that person, and really finding value in encouragement and lifting people up and pointing out the small little things that they were doing that were great, and using a strength-based approach even before I knew what that was. So I just love that aspect of humanity, is that we all need love and acceptance and just someone to say, hey, I see you and I see that you're trying, and I see what good you're doing in the world, and what a difference that makes in somebody, and how encouraging it is to keep going and keep furthering those pursuits in life. While I was there, being international and away from your family is difficult. And I talked earlier about just the importance of support and taking good self-care and finding balance, but also the importance of mentors, finding people that have done this type of work before, that you can ask questions to, bounce ideas off of, and just get support in a general way from. That was one thing that helped me immensely, and something that I continue to pursue in my own life now, even in East Tennessee, is finding mentors, people that will give me, challenge me, that will give me good advice, and be a listening ear in that way. Social work, international or not, is difficult. You hear and take on people's pain. You really see the dark side of humanity, but you also see the amazing good part, the innately good that human beings bring to the table and to life. Um, I had so many experiences where, even in really dark moments, in Haiti, when people, were struggling to survive, and they would still be singing and loving one another and helping one another, sharing food even though they had nothing. And I will always carry that with me, of people. There are good in most people and in the world, and in social work sometimes you lose sight of that, because you do hear so much trauma, so much pain, so much isolation. And so reminding myself and finding and seeking out with clients and with people that you work with, of what is the good, what is going right in your life right now, and the importance of practicing gratitude, and seeing, and in search and pursuit of good. International social work is an incredible experience. It's difficult, it's hard, it's uncomfortable sometimes, it's awkward. Traveling can be stressful in and of itself. Not having your support system, not having the comforts of home can be difficult, but it's immensely rewarding. And you learn so much about the people that you're working with, and also yourself, and how you function in the world, how you relate to others. I I don't think I would be the person I am without those experiences. It changed my worldview and what my value system was and what I thought was important. I highly recommend anybody who's thinking about it, to do a lot of research before they go, of the culture of, what is life going to be like when they're there. Even as far as visa constraints, because I have run into that. You don't think about those things before you go. A lot of people are just like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to live another country, and everything will be fine. And there's a lot of hiccups and a lot of things that can come up. So doing your research beforehand, again, talking to people, finding mentors that have been there before, and having a flexible mindset, not going in with a rigid idea of what's going to happen or what you're going to do, because most likely that will not happen. And so being able to be flexible, go with the flow, again, meet people where they're at and try to learn and be of a curious mindset instead of trying to enact change right away or to impose your values and your own culture and your opinions on them, and to act as a visitor, as an important is a really important concept of that. Again, if somebody is considering international social worker, I really encourage you to be introspective of why are you wanting to do that. I shared with you earlier of like me going to Haiti and thinking I'm gonna change the world and I'm going to help all these people, and finding that actually I'm learning so much from them and they don't need a lot of things that I thought that they needed. And so, being introspective in why are you wanting to go there, and having the understanding that, there may be some thoughts or some feelings of, I think anyone going into social worker is a helper, wants to help people, and just having some insight into your own feelings and what you're wanting to get out of that experience. I journaled while I was there and have for a lot of my life. I feel like that was really helpful for me to be introspective, for me to work out my thoughts. And when I found that didn't really have anybody to talk to, journaling can help externalize what's going on inside and also be a sort of a memoir of experiences. Because when you're over there, there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of, in life in general, a lot of things happen and pass you by. And it's awesome to be able to look back and remember, and even a small story or what I was feeling at that moment. And, journaling or blogging even can be a really cool experience when you're in those sort of environments and working, and being able to just be really honest with yourself is always important, but especially when you're working overseas internationally and especially in third world cultures. As I described before, I was very lucky to be able to live in Amsterdam where I worked and have a free place to live at that. However, if I could have gone back and changed anything during that time, it would have been my living situation. I think I would have lived further out. I would have made more space between my home life and work life. That's something I really recommend if you are pursuing international social work and you talk to your employer, ask about living situations, ask about, where they want you to live, or, and figure out, transportation, how you're going to get to work, but also like what would be the best for your mindset. If you're an introvert, that might be something really important to live a little bit further out so you get alone time, so you get space to self-care. And even if you're an extrovert, that you can find, a safe place in your house that is separate from work, because we all need those to set those boundaries, to have balance in our life, and to find again a community that is outside of work, to live there and to get relationship and find home wherever you are. And sometimes that means being a little bit more separate from work and having set hours instead of working all the time, and making sure that you're setting those boundaries for yourself is very important. Again, I like finding your community. The most enriching part of living in and overseas, exploring a new culture, is that you get to have all these new experiences. So I so encourage you, when if you do go overseas, either that's for social work or just for travel, to really embrace the culture, eat what they eat, shop where they shop, do what they do, and have that inquisitive mindset of you want to experience all that is, good or bad, and that is where you learn the most and where you connect with people the most. If you're partaking in what their daily life is and what they love to do and what love to eat, that is where real connection and relationships stem from. So, kind of lastly, like I told you, I pursued some websites to look for jobs specifically for international social work. So I'm going to give you some of those. Idealist.org is a great one to look up. They have a lot of nonprofit jobs, a lot of international nonprofits, careers or jobs or internships. So that's a great place to look, as well as globaljobs.org. That is also a great one that has a great wealth of different opportunities and things that you may not be able to find on your average Indeed or when you're looking for a job other places. So again, I came back from Amsterdam. I was there for about a year and a half. I wish I would have been there longer, but I did have some visa issues. So I came back and I decided I wanted to go and pursue my MSW in at ETSU, and I completed that. And I worked in foster care. I was a child and family therapist, so I worked with the the youth and children in foster care, the foster parents themselves, and also the children's biological parents. And I did that for about 3 years. Loved it. It was hard. A lot of driving, a lot of pain and trauma, and learned so much as a clinician and as a person. And again, having that experience overseas and learning that everybody needs something different and that that there is good in most people and in most situations in life. And I think that served me well coming back here. And even in these horrible situations with families, that there is good qualities and there is good within them, was an important takeaway for me. I did struggle with a little bit of compassion fatigue going into foster care, and I think having the big difference of helping somebody in Haiti with their basic needs of food, water, shelter, and then with the women in the red light district with safety and things, and then coming back and I'm talking to teenagers who are distraught about not having a cell phone, or somebody broke up with them, and finding it hard to really have a wealth of compassion for them, where it's such a different experience. And so that's one thing I really worked on and struggled through, but finding that those things are so vitally important to them, and that every human needs social connection and their basic needs, but also warmth and love and attention. And that is what the kids in foster care were missing, is the attention, the family system, the community that so many people in Haiti already had. And so I had an odd view that people that really didn't have anything, and you would think that their life is so much harder or worse, really were much more content and happy. And then the kids and teenagers and families here had so much pain and so much struggle and hardship, but they did have, clean water and food and shelter and all their basic needs. So these people were missing a community, and these people were missing basic needs. And just the dichotomy and the difference between both needs, but both are important, and both are vital and valid, and that their concerns of not having a cell phone or breaking up with their boyfriend or not having friends is just as important as anyone else's life. And that when you can learn to be present with somebody, and again, be inquisitive with them, be curious about their life, sit with them in their pain, whatever that might be, you're doing such a service. And it's so important. And that we basic humans just need compassion and care, and how across the board, across cultures, across age groups, races, genders, that is at its core the most important. So I think when you're working within that mindset, no matter where you go or what you choose to do in life as a social worker, that you will be successful. I love the quote from Maya Angelou that says, "People don't remember what you said, but they remember how they felt." And that when you treat people with kindness and with compassion and you're present with them, that it means so much to their life. So I am now here at ETSU working in the counseling center. I'm a counselor there, and I also do general outreach. I love it. I love working with this age group and people like yourselves that are in pursuit of betterment and who really have the freedom of choice to make change in their life. It's fantastic. But I am around my Debbie has my email, Dr. Thibeault has my email and my contact information, and I would be happy to talk with anybody who is interested in international social work, who wants to ask more questions, who's just curious. Please contact me. I'd be happy to meet with you or dialogue via email, whatever you need. So thank you for letting me have this time and just sharing my stories with you.